This is David Lloyd, editor of There's Only One F in Fulham, and you are listening to the fabulous Fulham Focus podcast.
Fulham.
Hello, welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name's Matt Boisclair. Fulham are out the Carabao Cup, and my bet is nobody really cares. We'll find out, though, as joining me is a man who makes Opt to look like mere amateurs of the statistics world. It's Matto, Statto, and with a Cardiff match preview in the second half of the show, a man who's never too far away when there's a sniff of any chat about Wales, it's Baldo, Matt Baldwin. I wonder if Statto's stats are keeping up with how many different combinations of Matts we're using on the show this season. We've got myself, Arta, Baldwin, Lampett and Dom involved these days. Statto, how's things?
I'm good, thanks. I was just wondering, should I put like a little fact file together at the end of the year to look at all the different Matt combinations we've had?
I think you probably should. I think that's a really good idea. It's one way to keep up with it anyway.
The most dynamic partnership and things like that.
I'm not quite sure how you manage that. The least amount of shit spoken, maybe?
Something like that.
That definitely wouldn't include me, for sure. And Baldo, looking forward to your trip back to the Valleys on Friday night?
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just say that any combination, least shit talked wouldn't involve me in any way either. I think I'm very much bottom of that disciplinary table.
I don't think I'm far behind you. Good stuff. All right, just a quick note before we look back at the Southampton game to mention the extremely sad plight of Bury, who were expelled from the Football League on Tuesday evening after their buyer fell through. I honestly don't know what I'd do if Fulham, a part of my life for 30 years, was no longer there. And of course, we did come close to something similar to their plight in the 80s as well. It's a horrible, harsh reality for the community of Bury this week. So on behalf of all of us at Fulham Focus, we send our heartfelt sympathies to the supporters and everyone involved with Bury Football Club. Hopefully there'll be a way back for them soon. Right, Southampton.
Fulham.
So this game really lived up to its billing, didn't it? Fulham reserves versus Saints reserves and a 0-1 defeat. Statto, what did you make of it? As expected?
Meh. Like,
Yeah.
it's the League Cup. We're a championship team. To Southampton's credit, they didn't really play a reserve team. They actually had quite a lot of first teamers out there, whereas we were the team playing most of our reserve team. The result, you could say, was a bit unfortunate in our behalf, but not particularly fussed about it, to be honest.
Yeah, they were all over us in the second half, to be honest. What do you think, Baldo? I mean, do you care that we're out of the League Cup?
No, because I think anyone who's sort of, barring the odd run of Bradford from a couple of years ago and Wigan when they were first came into the Premier League, no one really outside the top six goes into a season with the expectation of making a decent cup run, in either the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup. So I'm not really all that fussed about it in the grand scheme of things. I was more intrigued to see which players we were going to play, how much rotation we were going to give, and who of the academies and the under 23s and the under 18s were going to get appearances. That was really my only concern, was the development of the players rather than any sort of significant result.
Yeah, and it's funny. I always remember the League Cup as being a competition in which lower division sides would at least have a chance, because the top sides would maybe play a weakened side. But last season, Man City v Chelsea is the final of the League Cup. So I think that devalues its meaning to the lower league sides anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, but here's the thing. But they still played lower, weakened sides throughout the early stages of the tournament. So it's not as if they were playing full-strength sides. Although I think when Man City played Leicester in I think the quarterfinals or maybe the third round, I don't know, they played their backup goalkeeper, I think Zinchenko, who was backup last year, got some game. Phil Foden got some game time. So it was only really when we got to the final that we realised, oh, hang on, big teams. The big teams do still rotate every now and again. We've got third round coming up in a couple of weeks. Now, I would be shocked if they didn't put out reserve sides there as well.
Yeah.
I think in an alternate reality where we never got relegated last year and we had a solid mid-table finish, and this would be our second season back in the Premier League, then there'd be more of a case to maybe take the competition a bit more seriously. To try and build on something to try and get to a cup final. But given the position we're in, and particularly eventually, even if we got a run, we'd eventually come up against a City or a Chelsea of the world. It's just a bit pointless, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is frustrating. So, as expected, the starting lineup was a blend of fringe players, youngsters, and then Steph Joe and Joe Bryan. I was surprised to see Joe Bryan start, given that we don't have many options at left back, and he's really the only one we have. But perhaps that's why he did play. So the lineup was Rodak, and then Christie at right back, Kevin McDonald and Maxime Lemarchand as centre halves, then Joe Bryan. Then we had Johansson, O'Reilly, and Onoma making his debut in midfield. De La Torre and Bobby Reid and Kamara up front. Were you happy with the lineup? Were there any big surprises in there? The one that stands out for me is Kevin McDonald playing centre half, actually.
I think, if anything, that shows just how threadbare our defence is at the moment. At the moment, our main first choice defence of Stephen, Sess, Ream, Mawson, Bryan. It's okay. There's still a few mistakes in there, and they're still not perfect, but they're slowly growing in confidence. But if one of them were to get injured, if Ream was to get injured, then our backup is Lemarchand, and he hasn't been convincing at all, I think, since he's joined us, to be fair. And then that our fourth choice centre back is K-Mac. It's a bit worrying, to be honest.
So as Arthur was saying there, the biggest surprise is Kevin McDonald, though. If anyone goes back and listens to the promotion season podcast, I know I certainly was spouting for. I don't know if anyone else was, but this idea of having Kevin McDonald as a centre back, because that's effectively what he did already. The way he sort of split the fence with Adoy and Ream either side of him, just sort of playing a very deep defensive midfield role. So, as much as it was a bit of a surprise to actually see this theory that I've had for the best part of 18 months come to fruition. It was not exactly out of the realms of possibility, if I'm being brutally honest. But yeah, what you're saying about Joe Bryan as being our backup left back, I thought that if we're not taking this competition seriously, as by the lineup showed, I'd say why not put Lemarchand at left back, which is a position he's played before, and then put one of the younger centre backs in, like Jeremy Poku, who was on the bench, or Dennis Adoy, for instance, who was also on the bench. Why not give them some game time instead, and give Joe Bryan a little bit of a break?
Yeah, that's completely fair enough. I was really surprised, but just going back to the Kevin McDonald thing, do you think that's something that we might see more of certainly between now and January, perhaps, when we've got another opportunity to bring in more central defenders? What do you think, Statto? Is there a chance?
Yeah, definitely. Particularly because he didn't do a terrible job yesterday. He was actually quite composed and did an all right job as centre back, and also because I think K-Mac's midfield game time may be restricted this year. With the signings of Arthur and Harrison Reed, we already have Steph Joe in there, and Onoma is coming along. I think K-Mac may see his game time a bit limited in that position. So maybe if he does, play at centre back, we'll see more of K-Mac, and it could be a good, second option. He's quite good with the ball. He's quite big and physical. It could be almost an Indian summer for K-Mac this season.
Yeah, I guess you don't really need to have a great deal of pace to play centre half in at this level anyway. And of course, Matt O'Reilly started, so another midfielder. It's good to see him in amongst the starting 11, even if it's just for the reserve team in the cup. But he's been linked with a move to Germany for some time, and arguably he's way down the pecking order given the midfielders that we've signed and retained this season. Baldo, do you think we'll see much more of him this season now we're out the cup?
No, if I'm being brutally honest, I don't think he's quite ready for championship yet. I mean, of course we may see him. You never know when we may get a spout of injuries and suspensions, which means we're sort of forced to. And just touching on Kevin McDonald, the centre back, I don't think it's going to be out of choice that we see Kevin McDonald as centre back. I think it's going to be more out of necessity, and that's probably going to be the same with Matt O'Reilly. It's if we find ourselves with Matt O'Reilly in the central midfield 4, 2 or 3 game stretches, then the injury situation and possible suspension as well has got pretty bad. If we're having to go to that level, not disrespecting Matt O'Reilly in any way. I think he's got a very good future, but there's just so much more ahead of him right now that that need to have game time if we're aiming to get promoted this season.
Yeah, he had an opportunity to write the headlines in the first half as well. The ball fell to him on the edge of the box, and he found Rose Ed with it, unfortunately. So yeah, perhaps a bit more refinement there. But it's interesting though. He's been a player that's been much talked about for a couple of years now, and it's good to see him get some game time. So if he's doing the business for the reserve team or the under-23s or whoever, then I can see him being given an opportunity at least by Scott Parker. Scott Parker seems to be a man who will give the kids a chance. So looking at the stats from yesterday's game, we had 60% possession all match and just the one shot on target, which is really disappointing. But even with the second string, we've got to be better at utilising our possession. It's harping back to the Slav days, isn't it, Statto?
Yeah, since the Millwall game when we had that mental stat of having like 87% possession, there's always been, everyone was highlighting that with all that possession, we had very few shots, and then that trend carried over into the Forest game and again into this game. When Slav was in charge, we'd play the nice football with high possession, but there was always a high amount of shots. There was always a lot of chances, and maybe in Slav's unfortunate situation, he didn't quite have the attackers that would finish it off. He had to put up with Ayite and Cabana, whereas Parker's got Knockaert and Cavallero, and it's nice to see that we're playing big based football, but it doesn't look to be any end product like there was with Slav ball, and it's a slight cause of concern, I think.
Yes, there's a bit of it, but again, were we really expecting anything? This is our second string side. If there were any good at finishing, they'd be in the first team. So I don't know if anyone really should have expected any different. A front three of De La Torre, Reed, and Kamara. How many of them would you put your house on scoring? Even 10 goals a season, even if they were regulars in the first team. I don't think anyone would. So I'm not exactly shocked that those statistics come through.
So true, but there's still the lack of shots that we had. Even with all this possession bay, there's still very few shots coming out of that. And what's the point of having all this possession if we're not going to do anything with it? If you saw during the game, we were just passing beyond our centre backs, and when you have a centre back like Maxime Marchand who just passes it and then loses possession, it's all high risk, low reward, to be honest.
I think I can get away with saying this because Matt Dom's not on the show, but we need more penetration.
Yeah, we do. It's all good passing around and keeping ball, but there needs to be that more kind of direct, like I said, penetrative impact, and and
so childish.
God, we are so childish.
So childish.
Let's move on. Okay, Southampton took the lead with around half an hour to go, with a chance that came down our right side. Cross has come into the box, and Michael Obafemi has beaten Rodak with a kind of close range finish. Other than that, though, I thought Marek Rodak had an excellent game. He did superbly well to keep the score down. Saints had 7 shots on target, and he kept them at bay.
Yeah, I think excellent may be sort of stretching it a tad. He did an okay game. There's none of those saves you're going to be seeing on any montages of the greatest saves of the Carabao Cup this season sort of thing. I don't think any of his efforts are going to be on there, but he did respectable is probably the best way to put it. And I know that it's going to lead to a lot of debate. It certainly has in the sweepstakes Fulham Focus WhatsApp group. It's certainly about whether or not we should maybe drop Bettinelli and give him a stretching goal. But it wasn't anything. It wasn't anything spectacular. He did a good job. He got man of the match from the website, and I think that's just about good enough. But I'm not ready to start tipping him for to be the next great goalkeeper just about yet.
He did the basics very well, but yeah, like you said, in Bettinelli's favour, he hasn't done anything wrong massively this season either. So you can't really drop Bettinelli for doing nothing. especially for Rodak, who he had a good game, but he didn't necessarily show that he's the much better keeper than Bettinelli.
Rodak spared Maxime Lemarchand's blushes a few times. There was one where he passed it across the goal and just gave one of their players a clear run on goal that he tipped round the post. And then another chance that really stands out was right at the end when Danny Ings, he just lazily passed it and Danny Ings intercepted it. And then he even tried to bring him down in the area as well.
Actually, a little two-foot change.
Yeah, but if he'd have brought him down and given the penalty away, he'd have got a red card, and that would have left us even more threadbare at the back in a game that we'd pretty much lost by then anyway. So not a good night for Maxime Lemarchand.
He's so low on confidence, I think. Like he just doesn't know what to do anymore. I mean, I think when we first bought him, first game of the year last year against Palace, he looked okay at centre back. It was him and Chambers, I think it was, that first game of the season. And yeah, he didn't look terrible, but it's just been downhill since for him. And I want to feel sorry for him, but at the same time, he kind of brings it on himself, to be honest.
I think that's a little bit harsh, especially last season. I thought he was one of our better defenders. Not that was particularly difficult because we couldn't defend last season. But yeah, this season and particularly last night, absolutely dreadful. Baldo, anything to add?
Not particularly, no. Particularly in regards to Lemarchand, has he really given us anything apart from possibly one of the best chants we've had in a number of years?
Yeah, that's very true. All right, well, let's not waste any more time talking about the Carabao Cup. We are out. Let's have a quick Scott Parker rating for his overall performance during the Southampton game. Statto, over to you first. Out of 10?
A 5. Nothing good, nothing special, but he gave youth a chance. So, yeah, 5.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Baldo?
Yeah, similar answer for me. It's a 5. Not really expecting much, didn't deliver much. So, yeah, 5 for me.
I would have liked to have seen him bring the subs on a bit sooner. And it's a trend I've noticed with Parker. He doesn't like to make changes until late. And, it would have been nice to have seen Taylor Crosdale or Ben Davies come on a bit sooner. But it's only a minor thing.
Fair enough. For what it's worth, I'd say I'd give him a 6. I thought his lineup was okay. I was quite excited to see some of the younger players, but yeah, like you say, Statto, it would have been nice to see people like Taylor Crosdale get on the pitch a little bit sooner than 1 minute from the end of the game. But anyway, it's done now. We'll have another go next season, and I expect we'll be underwhelmed again.
Probably.
All right.
I just want to say the only last thing I want to say about Parker's choice is there was no Aite or Cabana whatsoever, and does that mean that they're on their way out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I did wonder. I mean, Aite was kind of in and around the squad at the start of the season, wasn't he? But who knows what's happened? Perhaps it was just a case of let's give youth a chance. I don't know. Who knows what the thinking was? Good. All right. Well, let's move on to a Cardiff preview after this.
Fulham.
Right. So on to the real stuff now, and we have got a massive, massive fixture in South Wales on Friday evening. It's live on TV. I wonder whether Stefan Johansson starting against Southampton means that he might miss out on a starting place against Cardiff, maybe with Harrison restarting. Baldo, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more or less going to be the same side that played against Nottingham Forest, which... Hang on, Stefan Johansson started against Nottingham Forest, didn't he?
He did.
Sorry. It's been brushed from my memory so quickly because of the Southampton game. I forgot what the starting lineup was. No, I think Stefan Johansson probably will probably start against Cardiff because it wasn't as if the Nottingham Forest, we lost the game, so we must make changes. It wasn't as if they did anything majorly wrong, particularly in the midfield and the forwards did anything wrong. So I don't see why there'd be any reason why Stefan Johansson would find himself out of the lineup specifically.
Okay. Well, I guess we're not expecting Joe Bryan to be dropped, but it was just something that we were talking about on the WhatsApp group last night with the likes of Onuma now in and around the squad. I just wondered whether perhaps Johansson would be the first person to make way when these players start getting brought through. What do you think, Statto? Do you think Johansson will keep his place on Friday night?
It's a good point. I wouldn't be surprised if Harrison Reed does come in instead of him, and that's not because Johansson's done anything wrong. I think we haven't really seen much of Reed, but from what we know from Blackburn, he was more of a defensive midfielder, doesn't like getting us forward as much as Steph Joe does. So by having him and Arthur sit back, it could give Kearney a bit more freedom to go around and do his thing. Which having Steph Joe maybe restricts Kearney a bit. So maybe that could be Parker's thinking on Friday.
Funny, isn't it? When the season first started, we thought that midfield three would be back to the dream team of Kearney, McDonald, Johansson, and now we're accepting the fact that McDonald probably isn't going to play as many games, and now we're even thinking about, well, is Johansson? But I know J-Mac is a big Johansson fan, and he thinks he's been excellent for us so far this season. And the thing that Johansson does bring us, as we've said many, many times in the past, is he brings a bit of grit and a bit of dirtiness to the midfield, and he doesn't mind fouling a player to break up an attack. And sometimes you just have to win a little bit ugly, and I think that's what he brings to the team that perhaps other players don't.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a mistake that Parker made on Saturday was taking him off at half-time for Bobby Reid. I think he might have been injured or something, in which case you bring on Harrison Reid instead. But by taking Steph Joe off for an attacking player like Bobby Reid, that kind of leaves Harry Arthur as the only player to kind of sit back and make those challenges. Whereas Steph Joe was there to break up the play, to create the link between defence and attack. So that was a mistake on Parker's behalf. So, if Johansson is dropped, I'd like to see it for Harrison Reid. And, like I said, it's not because Reid's bad. I think it's because Harrison Reid he deserves a little chance. We can see what he's got, see what he's about.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure Johansson will still be on the bench.
I think Harrison Reid is another one of those players from the same cloth as Johansson. He doesn't mind getting stuck in as well. So I think that would be a fair replacement. But obviously Bobby Reid's illegible because he's on loan from Cardiff, so he won't be around the squad at all. I wonder who's going to come in instead of him. Do you think we might see a return to the bench for Ayite or Cabano, or do you think maybe Taylor Crossdale will get a chance on the bench? What do you think, Baldo?
I think it's probably likely going to be Ayite takes. Well, hang on, I'm just trying to think the transfer window, because there's the foreign transfer window. It closes on Monday. Am I right? I think it closes on Monday, so we can still play them in effect. But you do wonder if we have this theory that their days of the club could be about to come to an end. You don't really want to risk them getting injured, having to come off the bench, maybe getting injured, and potentially jeopardising any of that. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. But yeah, I'd imagine it would be Ayite on the bench for Bobby Reid in replacement of.
I think if Ayite was to leave, I think that would be a real shame. I think that would potentially leave us a little bit short. All right, we've got a great starting attack, and we've got Bobby Reid, but after that,
we've got Abubakar Kamara.
Really? Exactly. I definitely think we should keep Ayite. I can see Cabano going, but I think that would be a shame if Ayite was to leave. I think he offers something different as well.
Yeah, I think of the two, I think most Fulham fans would be prepared to let Cabano leave first.
Yeah, that's a fair point. All right. Go on. Sorry.
But I was going to say, what's also interesting is that since we've had Bobby Reid, Parker likes to bring him on as a sub in the second half for Johansson or for Kearney sometimes. So if we don't have that option, will it be Kamara that he likes to bring on as the impact sub, or will it be Ayite?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That is one thing that Kamara does. He is a very good option to have on the bench if you really want to mix something up and just throw the kitchen sink if you're behind. But Ayite is much more measured and much more considered and a better footballer, as we all know. But I mean, Kamara, I don't know how many more chances he needs at this club. I don't think he's ever going to be a regular in the first team. But if he's happy to sit on the bench, then fair enough. One man who eyes will be on Friday night is Harry Arter. He was on loan at Cardiff last season from Bournemouth, and now he's on loan at Fulham from Bournemouth with a view to a permanent transfer. He's looked excellent for us so far this season. And perhaps after, well, I was going to say after being let go by Cardiff, but I guess he was always going to come to Fulham with Scott Parker being there. But I think eyes will be on him. What have you thought of Harry Arter so far this season, Baldo?
He's been okay. Nothing spectacular. Again, he's someone that does the dirty work. And in that sense, you don't really want to see his name, because then he's probably committing lots of fouls or getting yellow cards or making mistakes. I think his only real mistake has been something I brought up in the way he dealt with Forest's second goal on Saturday. His attempts to bring down Lewis Grabban. Other than that, I think he's done an okay job. Nothing quite spectacular, but given the style of football that we know Cardiff City like to play, I think we're going to need someone to be down on their level to some extent. And I think Harry Arter is going to be absolutely perfect for that, to get stuck in and not be afraid to get physical, as Neil Warnock sides like to do.
Yeah, he'll know their style of play very well. Anything to add, Statto?
No, I agree with all that, to be honest. Arter will be a very, important player in that match. Almost a shithouse derby, pretty much. And yeah, I think that's also could be another reason why Harrison Reed could get brought in as well, because he can, put in those crunching tackles as well. Not that Steph Joe couldn't, but I think, having both Arter and Reed there, it could be quite a good shield for us.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, we've had some good battles with Cardiff lately, the last couple of seasons particularly. Do you think they'll still be smarting from losing at the Cottage at the end of last season, a result that effectively relegated them with that cracking goal from Ryan Babel? What do you think, Baldo?
Yeah, I think there's a potential. There seems to be some sort of faux rivalry developing between us and them for reasons that pass me by for idiotic reasons. So yeah, I think that they will certainly be up for it, and in effect they're going to need to be up for it, because they haven't exactly had the best start to the season, and their performance. If you think our performance last night was terrible, go and have a look at what they managed to pull out against Luton. My word, that's a dark performance, and they're going to need something to pick themselves up. And again, a game against someone that they think, the crowd are going to be up for it, because it's still, the physical Cardiff against the, tiki-taka Fulham. So they're going to want a result, and that will probably make its way onto the field and should make for an interesting encounter.
Well, this is the thing. I was thinking about that result against Luton. They lost 3-0 at home, didn't they, last night or Tuesday night, depending on when you're listening to this. And personally, I'd like to think that the result against Southampton, it doesn't make any difference to how we're going to approach Friday night, and we'll bounce back on Friday night. But on the show at the weekend, I did say I would have liked to see us put out a full team, because if we could win against Southampton, then it breeds a winning mentality, and I think that's important, especially at this stage of the season. That being said, we didn't win, but we didn't get hammered to a team in the same division as us who haven't done particularly well so far this season in Luton. So I feel like we might have a slight advantage based on the fact that Cardiff were hammered at home last night.
Yeah, definitely, and also put the additional fact that Cardiff have actually got off to a bit of a shaky start just in general this year, which can be seen as a bit surprising. Obviously, before the seasons began, people looked at Cardiff and thought that they would be up there again. Neil Warnock, he knows the Championship. They've retained most of their core squad of players and added a few Championship savvy players like Aidan Flint. So it's a bit surprising that they've got off to a bit of a mediocre start. So in that sense, I'd like to think we do have that psychological edge, because we're doing kind of how we were expected to perform.
Yeah, well, I mean, going back to more historic results, I was just looking at the Cardiff fact file that you sent over to me earlier, the stats, and Fulham and Cardiff have met 64 times. We've won 4 out of the last 8. The last match at Cardiff, we lost 4-2, which was a crap performance. Callum Chambers played at right back and came off at half time. Yeah, he was awful, but then he found his feet in a different position later on in the season, so that's fair enough. But Seth scored, as he always used to, against Cardiff. Shirley scored that amazing goal. The last time we played them in the Championship was on Boxing Day in 2017, and we beat them 4-2. That was the season when they just pipped us to promotion. Reem, Ayite, Sess and Steph Joe with that lovely little goal in the last minute when he chipped it over the keeper after running the whole length of the pitch. Quality. That was the second match of our 23-game unbeaten run. So looking at players that have played for both clubs, there's players who are involved at the moment, as we've already mentioned, Bobby Reid and Harry Arter. The former won't be involved, but Harry Arter we would expect to start. Neil Etheridge, what's going on with him at the moment? Is he actually playing for Cardiff? I don't think I've seen him so far this season.
I haven't actually checked. Has he not been playing for them?
Not sure.
I just assumed he was their first choice keeper still.
I know that a lot of clubs, Aston Villa, I think, were one of the clubs in for him at some stage during the summer. I don't know, maybe he's injured. I honestly, as much as this will shock many people, I haven't been keeping up with what Cardiff have been doing so far this season. So I do not know. Again, it could be an injury, it could just be, drop in form, or it could be that Neil Warnock has finally realised what we Fulham fans realised after the Dents game, and then Neil Etheridge isn't all that good.
Yeah, he must be injured. He wasn't even in the squad at the weekend.
Wow,
so,
I was just at the back bench starting 11, and he wasn't even there. Just going back to the past few games, it's got to be an injury, surely. I mean, he was one of their stand-up performers last year. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I'm just, again, looking at your stats, he played every single game last season and kept 10 clean sheets, even though they've got relegated. So, that's pretty outstanding. Their joint top scorer last season was Bobby Reid. He only got 5 goals in the Premier League, but then we signed him. So, and as you've already mentioned as well, they've brought in Aidan Flint from Middlesbrough, somebody that we were linked with when he was at Bristol City. Marlon Pack's come in from Bristol City, just up the road. Isaac Vassell from Birmingham and Robert Glatzel from FC Heidenheim. He got 13 goals last season in the Bundesliga second division. So I think it'll be an interesting game. And we talked about this a little while ago and said this is the sort of game that will be Scott Parker's first real test. And I think he's had some tests already along the way, if I'm honest. But this is a proper test, going away to Cardiff, playing against the experience of Neil Warnock. What do you think the score's going to be, Statto?
Ooh, it's got to be a Fulham win as always. I'm just trying to think, will we keep a clean sheet? Probably not. I'm going to say 3-1 Fulham. Nice.
And Baldo, what are you thinking?
Yeah, in a similar vein of form, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. There will be some scrappy goal in there by Cardiff. Probably once we're 3-0 up, they'll get one with about 10 minutes to go that will really boost the atmosphere somewhat and get things going. But yeah, 3-1, a 3-1 victory for us, I would say.
But for the last 2 times we've been there, the result's been 4-2. Last season, they beat us 4-2. Season before that, we beat them 4-2. I'm going to go for 4-2 Fulham.
Yeah, keep up the trend.
Let's keep up the trend. Good stuff. All right. Any other business, Baldo? How are you looking forward to your trip? What's your plan?
Yeah, I would say it's a wonderful day. It's wonderful every time I go down to Wales. It's the Fulham game on the Friday night, and then it's the Wales-Ireland game on the Saturday. So it's going to be a lovely weekend, weekend of sport for me.
You're staying down there. Nice. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it would be a bit of a commute, wouldn't it? If I went down to Cardiff, came back home, then went down again the next day. It would be pretty stupid of me, wouldn't it?
Well, I wouldn't put it past you, though.
Yeah, fair enough.
Good stuff. What about you, Statto? Any other business?
I'm not really. Unfortunately, based in Kent, I won't be able to go over to Wales on a Friday night, so I'll be watching at home on TV. And I've got a bit of a football-filled weekend. My Sunday league team, our season kicks off on Sunday, so big up Moncton FC.
You're a goalkeeper, aren't you?
I am indeed. I am.
Excellent. Well, good luck with that. I hope you win.
Double clean sheets for Fulham and Moncton is the aim this weekend.
That's where you got to put your money, everybody. Good stuff. All right. Well, as ever, thank you very much for joining me, chaps, and thank you at home for listening. We'll be back on Monday morning to discuss all the fallout from Friday night at Cardiff and from Sunday at Moncton. Sure. I think I'm hosting on the next show, but you may have J-Mac back. I'm not sure what's actually going on at the moment. One thing's for sure, the Welsh wizard Baldo will be here to tell you all about his trip, though. In the meantime, do visit fulhamfocus.com for your Fulham fix. Then find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, as well as subscribe to the podcast via all your usual channels too. Have a great weekend, everybody, and see you soon. Cheers.
Fulham.